Hey everyone, welcome to the Lightworker Support Group Expert Panel. Today's panelists are experts in animal communication. We have Marisa and we have Kathy, and I am personally so excited to hear about this. So I will let's get it all started. Without any further ado, Marisa will be first up, and I'll let her introduce herself and start sharing with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for coming. I just feel like thrown to the wolves right now. Ugh. Um, okay, my name's Marisa. I'm an animal communicator. I'm a psychic medium, a spiritual explorations guide. And I find that in my work, there's elements of my animal communication that always find their way in, regardless of what the session or the exploration is. For a long time, I didn't realize that I was a medium. I was focusing on psychic stuff and animal communication stuff. And that is in large part how I discovered that mediumship was just as accessible to me as everything else, because all of our loved animals and spirit kept showing up. And I was like, oh, you don't say. And not to knock humans, but I find personally, from my experience, that animals and spirit most of the time are a lot better at communicating direct messages from spirit world than humans. I feel like humans a lot of the time speak to me in symbols and these puzzle pieces that I have to try to translate, and the animals just show up and they just like tell it how it is, which I just think is an interesting thing. Um, what do I want to say right now? So for me, the biggest, I guess I'll use the word hurdle in honing my skills as an animal communicator, and I'm always a work in progress, has been to learn and allow myself to be in the silence. I'm very much I want to get to the nitty gritty of everything, and I want to know all the different pieces, and to learn how to be as quiet within my mind as possible to allow and receive the information. Very difficult. And I feel like you know where this is leading, which is what everyone says, that meditation really does help with upping your skill level for this kind of thing. And it doesn't need to be a big hour-long meditation session, which is what I thought for so long. Um, it can just be a 5-minute quieting of the mind, and it's just amazing how quickly that allows the understanding to come through. And something it took me a while to really grasp as well was that animals are just like people in the way that people all communicate differently. All of us have different communication styles, and animals are no different. Some will speak in symbols, some will be very willing to share about their physical ailments. When I do animal communication sessions, a lot of the time it's because they're sick, right? And their humans are concerned and they hope for answers. Um, I would say more often than not, the animals aren't really thrilled about talking about their ailments because they so badly want to focus on validating for their human that they see and know and feel and understand so much more than we think. Um, it's a weird thing to step outside of the box that we put animals in as these cute little beings that are just, a part of our lives, in not it's as if we don't really grasp the depth of the understanding that they have in the way that we think we're so esteemed as humans. Oh wow. But the things that I've learned from animals, truly, to be honest, far surpass anything a human has ever taught me, because the way that they go about teaching, it's kind of sneaky. It's like you don't even realize that they're teaching you. And for me, one of my weird like personality hangups is I don't like it when a human is speaking to me in an overly teaching way, because it makes me feel like they think I'm dumb. I don't know. This is probably some like childhood, crap that I should deal with. But when the animals teach me, I just feel so blessed to get their wisdom. Um, I'm going to share an example of how this one particular cat, I'll never forget this because it was so strange, but it's like this cat, just as humans in spirit know how to work with our own human encyclopedia, like, oh, they use all of our own experiences to get the message through. So the more stuff we have in our own toolbox, the better off it for everyone, right? So I was drinking tea with turmeric in it, and when I do sessions remotely, I work with a photo of the animal or a couple. Eyes are important for me. And I usually take a day or two just because, like, I listen and I write it all down. It's just kind of like a stream of consciousness, but it's not coming from me, right? And I like to allow the 2 days when I'm doing it remotely, simply because I don't ever want to assume that I'll have the trust of that animal immediately, right? Like some animals, just like people, are happy and quick to share. They're like, here's a bunch of shit. And you're like, whoa, you're an oversharer animal. Cool. And some animals take a little bit of time because they're like, who are you? And why are you asking me all of these very personal questions? So I was drinking this tea with turmeric in it, and this cat, who I immediately gathered had a serious sickness, although their human hadn't told me that. But I couldn't quite decipher what it was. And this cat said, turmeric. Turmeric would help my sickness. I mean, they weren't saying that that's the cure, but that to look that up and then I'll know what their sickness was. And I immediately got in my monkey mind, oh no, I'm just inserting that into this reading because I have turmeric tea. And so I ignored it and I kept on writing, and it just kept coming back in. I was like, okay, all right, I'll look that up. So I looked up, how does turmeric help cats with disease? And right off the bat, it came up that has been shown to help feline cancer. And that is how this cat told me that she had really serious cancer. So that was a lesson for me that I have learned over and over again, to always trust what you get, because the animals will not lead you astray. And it's like that Taylor Swift song, like, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. It's never them. So that's definitely a big lesson that the animals bring to me over and over. Another example of how animals can sometimes use symbolism to help broaden our own encyclopedia rather than being direct. I had this cat who was very direct in everything they were saying, until suddenly they got to showing me calculator. And I thought, well, this has been so clear and so concise, and all of a sudden there's a calculator. And I felt my mind dropping into, oh, I'm talking myself out of this now. And the cat just said, no, pay attention. And in my mind's eye, this cat showed me its paw hitting the 6 on the calculator, then the star, and then the 6. And they just did it over and over again. And I'm thinking, I'm completely insane. Like, I have a problem. I shouldn't be doing this. Oh my God. And the cat said, say it out loud over and over. Say it out loud quickly. So I did. And what it sounded like to me after I said it a few times was, sister is sick. Sister is sick. And I thought, oh God, this woman's, who, the cat's human lady, her sister is sick. And I thought, what do I do with this? Because this reading is about the cat and not about this woman's sick sister. And that was a kind of a weird fine line of, is that delving into something too personal I shouldn't touch on? And so I opted to omit that information because it just felt kind of sticky to me. And I never had met this woman before. I never seen anything on her Facebook profile or anything. And a week later, I opened my phone to Facebook and I see a post from this woman on the Facebook group that I didn't even really know I belonged to. And it said, please send prayers. I just found out my sister is really sick. And I thought, wow, this cat just gave me a huge lesson that even when things seem completely bonkers bananas and you try to talk yourself out of it, if you allow yourself to get super weird with it, like they are, the sky is really the limit. And so I messaged the woman and I told her what had happened and that I had omitted it. I was a little afraid of her reaction, but her reaction was just wonder and wow, my cat really does know so much more about what's going on than we think. And then she said, a lesson for you, always give what you get. And I said, yeah, for sure. Um, that's just one of my favorite examples because it was just so bizarre. Like, how is a cat pulling in a calculator right now? You feel me? So I have two house rabbits. If you meet me for 5 minutes, I'll just tell you that I'm that person. Like, I have bunnies. We could be talking about, accounting. And I'm like, yeah, and I have rabbits. And they have taught me so much. And I'm not going to go into that right now because I'll talk for 10 hours about my freaking rabbits. But every night I have a prayer that I do in their special bunny room before I go to bed, and they stay up all night making a mess. And I've noticed it gets longer and longer as I want to add to it. But also I want to practice saying this prayer without words. And I feel like this is really key for animal communication. While a lot of animals will talk just like humans, um, just like you or I, and some will use symbolism. I even had a cat that suggested to me to suggest to her human to use the modality of bibliomancy to understand the cat. And if you don't know, bibliomancy is when you open up a book or a magazine to a quote random page and you receive a message that way, you receive guidance this way. And I was going to discount that completely and say, no, that's something I love. And there's no way this cat is telling me to tell their human to practice this with them to understand them better. And the cat said, okay, well, let's do it, you and me now. And lo and behold, I got 3 straight, very synchronistic messages in 3 separate books from this cat, and they were all about sailing, all of them. It was wild. And so I wouldn't have been able to receive that particular message with just words because the way they were sharing that idea with me was through more of a feeling, the feeling when you open up a book and you have the exact sentence that you need in that moment. And that's how I got there and understood what they were trying to say. And then, of course, they gave me the visualizations after I had understood. And animals are epic with understanding visualizations and with understanding just pure feeling. So in the rabbit room, when we do the prayers, rather than speaking out loud and saying, I'm going to shorten it because you guys don't need to hear this long prayer, but it's like, I love you more than words could ever say. So I feel that and I picture that. And if you really, spend lots of time doing this, it's really crazy. Like you can just feel your heart expanding and the way that you can just more embody what you are intending or desiring is, it's a level up in our lives for various other reasons and not just animal communication. So this prayer I do, it could be 30 minutes if I spoke it out loud, but because I go through it simply with the language of the heart, it can be a minute. It can be longer if I want to sit with a certain sentence, as well as, I always intend health for them and protection. And when I do that piece, I kind of do like a body scan of both of them and the cats and the fish. And, I work a lot with color, and animals really understand color well, which is interesting because they don't all really see color well, but they get the feeling of the color. And this just really speaks to their awareness of so much more. But as I'm scanning and intending green for health, I can kind of see in their body where something might need a bit of an adjustment. And so I'll hang out there until it is the green that I want. And and that kind of, that goes into color healing and everything. And animals are super receptive to healing, whether it's with your hands on, whether it's remote, whether it's just intending colors. I find that, my lady rabbit, she was the one that taught me how to do it because she was just sick all the time when she was a little one. She had lots of digestive issues, and I was, I have all my gray hairs are from her probably. And she was like, use colors to heal me. And I didn't even know that that was a thing before her. So this little lady bun opened up my world in such a crazy way. And she's been healthy for a few years now with very little trouble ever since she showed me that practice. And if we pay attention, you know, if we really pay attention in the non-paranoid, oh my God, my animal is sick, they're acting weird way, if we pay attention on the soul level way, and we don't insert the words like, oh, oh, they probably have this, so they probably have that, oh, their food is making them sick. They'll share with us what they need. They won't always share what, this is from my experience, they won't always share what is going on because of what I mentioned earlier, but they will share what they need. And I just think that's so beautiful. And it really speaks to the difference of the modern human and really the like ancestral innate wisdom of the animal, that as humans we never know what the frick we need, right? Like we have no idea. We know what the problem is, but we go to doctors upon doctors trying to figure out what we need, and the animal is just like, I need this. um I just think they're amazing little Buddha healers. I'm going to talk for a minute about wildlife because this is not in any way, confined to our pets, our animal companions. Um, when I was a kid, I talked to the wildlife a lot, and they spoke to me, and I thought it was just my wild imagination, which I was proud of. I didn't think it was anything bad, but I definitely was like, oh, it's my wild imagination. And along the way, at some point, I forgot that I had been doing that. And so when I started really focusing on animal communication as, as like a job, I guess we'll say, um, it was as if I had to relearn that, which is just one of those things, as quote adults, we're constantly having to relearn things that we knew as a kid, but somehow they got washed down the drain. And I'll never forget this instance where I was driving, and I had already like picked back up on the wildlife communication, but I was more focused on the pets. I was driving and I was feeling lost in like my direction of life. It was one of those angsty emo drives, like, oh God, what am I doing? And I felt my energy just dropping, and I was like, I'm aware that I'm going to start spiraling, and I think I'm just, my whole life is just shit. Like, oh my God, it's probably about to get my period. I don't remember. We'll just blame it on that. And I shit you not, an eagle, a bald eagle, showed up on this lonely, windy highway right in front of my car. I had to step on the brakes. I mean, it was right in front of my windshield. And it kept flying, obviously, as birds do, but it turned its head around. And so it was looking at me through the window while it continued to fly straight and follow the windiness of the road along, with me. And I was just so stunned. And of course, I wanted to take a video, but I was driving. I was like, ah. And I asked for a message because this kind of thing doesn't just happen for no reason. And this eagle said, you don't always have to know where you're going to move in the right direction. And as silly as it sounds, at the time, I didn't piece together that this eagle was actually physically, actively showing me this and not just speaking this. I actually realized this later when I was telling the story to Christy May. Hi, Christy May. And I said, oh my God, it was flying ahead of me, but it was looking at me through the window instead of in the direction it was going, and it still was managing to go where it needed to go. And, I'm not going to say it fixed me and then I just felt all better, but it really did soothe me to know that the animals show up when you most need them, whether it's a pet that you suddenly rescue this pet from a Walmart parking lot, which someone just did yesterday, and I love that. Or a wild animal that appears to you in the woods in a moment of sorrow or of confusion. All of these little seemingly insignificant moments with animals are so beautifully orchestrated for our own teachings and our own healings and our own understandings. And if we just always remain open to them, we could learn a whole book of wisdom from an ant if we just take the time to receive. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and let Kathy take over.
So hi, I'm Kathy. I'd like to ask you a question. How do you communicate with them? How do you get
Me?
started? Yes,
Yeah.
I'll share what I.
Yeah, that's a great question. I should have addressed that. So for every animal, like I said, it's a little bit different, but I always introduce myself, whether it's remotely or in person, with who I am, what my intention is. I fill my heart with just trust, and most of all respect, or I guess respect and trust are equal. I try to put myself in their position with a stranger suddenly coming at me wanting to know all this stuff. I come at it with a playful attitude because I noticed animals really respond well to the energy of play because it's such a high frequency. Christy is cracking up over there. You like that? And then I just, I invite. I don't ask questions immediately. I like for them to have the opportunity to share with me first, whatever they feel they want to. And then once we have kind of a repertoire going back and forth, then I'll kind of slowly sprinkle in the questions. And if I feel that they're not immediately interested in a question, we'll move on. I'll come back to it, later on. And I just write as they share, and they'll make it clear when the session is over. It's just kind of like and we're done, but the more you engage with them in like a mutual respect way, the more likely they are to delve into kind of the sticky pieces that they don't particularly want to talk about, but their human really needs answers for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for the most part. Because I have one cat, and this is the only time it happened where it was a feral cat who had decided to adopt me from a colony of ferals that we had. And she was at the doorway in my room, and I said, well, what do I call you? And I suddenly got an image of Yogi Bear saying, hey, boo boo. And I said, well, that's funny. Hey, boo boo. And she jumped on the bed. I said, oh, that must be your name. Okay. And then she proceeded to show me more video of what her life was like with her previous family.
Awesome.
And then she stopped. That was the end. It's like she said what she had to say, and she hasn't done it since, and that's almost 2 years now.
I find for me personally, it's a lot harder for me to hear my animals than other people's animals, and it seems like that's a common thing.
Yeah, it could be. But anyway, as a kid, I was always in the woods with the animals or with wildlife in general. Or we had a cat that had kittens in our garage, and it was a feral cat, feral kittens. So once they were a little older, I sat every day and tried feeding them and trying to tame them, and they never really did. But they did come up to me a little bit. They trusted me, but they didn't trust anyone else. I've always had wild animals come up to me all my life. But I never really thought of it as communicating with them. I always thought, oh, these are my thoughts, and never pursued it until actually the last couple of years. My roommate, the man I'm renting from, he had a cat, Midnight, who was very sick. She had hyperthyroidism, and she was emaciated. Basically, he didn't know how to care for her. And I took her off the medication that she was on because it just rips apart the whole GI tract. And I started communicating. I tried doing a healing with her and she said no. She says, when it's my time, I'm comfortable. I don't want anything prolonging it. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to just take away any discomfort and make you as comfortable as possible. So, and my wish for you is to just go to sleep one day and just not wake up. And then she allowed me to do the healing. And we communicated off and on. She didn't want to go to the vet. And then this was confirmed by a friend who does animal communication. She was okay with maybe having someone come and euthanize her at our home. If we were uncomfortable, if it bothered us humans, not for her, which I thought was interesting. And my birthday, she gave me the most wonderful birthday present. And I realize now that that's how I do psychic readings. But I had spoken to her. I asked her if she ever had a litter of kittens. She turned her head. She wasn't going to talk. And I said, okay, you didn't have. I said, so what did you do that you absolutely love and miss doing now? And she took me inside her body. I could see out her eyes and experience her heartbeat and experience her excitement. She was stalking her prey. So I saw at her level going through the brush, through the field and through the grass and everything, and stalking her prey, and how proud she was, and that she thought no one was better than her. She kind of conceited. So that, that was like so amazing to experience being in an animal's body, even for a few minutes or seconds or however long it was, and just feel like she did. I think that was the most wonderful birthday present that I got. But we communicated off and on. I would share food with her, and that's how we got started. I was sharing food with her, and I said, well, it's my birthday. I don't want to celebrate life because she's dying. So I said, well, let's celebrate our lives. We both lived a long time. We're going to celebrate both our lives. And I immediately just asked her the questions. You hear me talk about myself all the time. I want to know about you. And that's how we got that started. But I learned when I do psychic readings, I actually step in someone's body, probably their auric body, and see life through their eyes and through their own experience. And now that I think back, it's like, oh yeah, that's, so someone was teasing me the other day. It's like, oh, or they weren't teasing, they were just being sarcastic. I'm saying, you've never been in my shoes. I said, actually, I have. Sorry, but I have, in a psychic way. I've seen what you experienced.
Yeah, so I wanted to chime in too, because I thought it might be good before you start sharing all your expertise, if we have a few more questions, because that was a great question, Kathy, and maybe there's a few more questions from people listening for Marisa.
Yeah, have at me, guys.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
Well, I'm going to chime in.
Okay.
I'm sorry I'm late, first of all.
Oh, the audacity.
I know I'm a terrible, terrible co-host. I just wanted to be here. But so I want to ask you, Marisa, I do a little bit of animal communication. But Marisa and I know each other pretty well. And I love the communication she has with animals and the ability to get the messages that they bring. And I have noticed that what Kathy said about it being like a psychic reading, our spirit energy blends with their spirit energy and become one. And it's pretty similar to a psychic reading. But I guess what I'd like to know is how is it different? I mean, I imagine it's a little different to psychically connect to an animal than it is to a person. Is it? And how does that work?
This is hilarious. I knew that you were gonna, or that someone was gonna ask this question today. And
Because
so
you're
I
psychic, Marisa.
I guess, yeah. I thought about it all day long. No matter what I did, I was like,
Must be
this is a really great question. So what I came up with, and this is one of those questions you could just really go down a rabbit hole with, like this is an essay question, right? It really boils down to the validation, I think. Because if you're psychically tuning into someone, you can see about their job or about the car they're about to buy, or they just, blah, blah. But what makes it different? So, okay, communicating with animals and people is the same in the regard of perceiving information that they have in their energy field. But when you're not just perceiving psychically, psychic insights, the communication aspect comes in through the way that they validate and through the back and forthness. So, it's a conversational situation, right? And as I was thinking about this, I was like, I'm gonna have to come up with an example that I've experienced. And there was one instance where I was listening to my boy bunny, Simon, who actually gave me his name of Simon after I'd already named him Kennedy. A couple of weeks later, he was like, yeah, my name's Simon. It's like, well, now you tell me. So now he's Mr. Simon Kennedy. And I really am into looking up the meanings of names, but for some reason I didn't look up Simon until eventually I did, and it means to listen. Shocking. So I was listening to Simon, who is a very prolific sharer. He's, my other animals are pretty hard to hear, but Simon is just like, ah! And I was talking myself out of what he was saying, thinking, I'm inserting my own ego into the situation. And I was like, I need validation from you, which he understood. And I had been asking him about our other rabbit, asking him what was going on with her, because she just was like zip. And even though he was telling me, I wasn't believing him. I thought it was my mind. And I said, okay, give me something I can verify online about Miss Rufio from you. And I might mess this up because I can't quite remember the symbols, but I think what he said was, pay attention to Jupiter and Venus with regards to the maiden's dress. And then he said something about there's a reference to Greek with regards to the lace. And it was just this weird, it's like, what is even happening? I'm having brain salad. I don't even know. But I had asked him to give me something to verify that I was hearing him correctly. And so I looked it up. Miss Rufio is a white rabbit, it should be noted. So I looked it up. What is the dress of the maiden with Venus and Jupiter symbols? And that is Alice in Wonderland's dress. And if you know Alice in Wonderland, you know that it's all because of the white rabbit that the whole adventure ensues. And before I knew it, I was looking, I lost hours of my life just like, what? She has these symbols on her maiden's dress, and around her neck, she has a symbol for, I think it's like Omega, maybe, which is a Greek symbol, right? So just in that weird word salad he gave me of stuff that didn't make any sense, he gave me what I needed. So I feel like I hope that that's a good example.
That's awesome, Marisa. Thank you. It is the validation. I'm getting chills from head to toe. And that's the big difference, is to be able to validate. So you're not in your own ego. Thank you, Marisa. Looks like Heidi has a question.
Yeah, I am fascinated by all this and just the entire topic, and not expressing by words, things of that. It's just, thank you for all the work that you do. I have a question that I've always been wondering since last year, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I have two dogs, and one of them we had to put down last year. And I always wondered with my living dog what he thought about death, because like we grieve differently as humans and things. And I just always wondered, like, is he aware of the passing, and what do animals think of death of their, these two dogs together? Does that make sense to you? I always just wondered what their thoughts are regarding a passing of a pet in the home, I guess I'll say. I hope this
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, definitely. Are you asking me or Kathy or both?
Well, any of us, either. We'll both
Both.
chime in. Go ahead.
Okay, you want to go first, Kathy?
Sure. So I think they know, and they accept life is, or death is a part of life. So they're more accepting, and they know when an animal's pretty much is going to die. I think they start transitioning long before we do, and the other animals see it. My cat, or my roommate's cat, did for quite a while. She had guides and angels and other animals. I even have two cats in spirit that tend to help other animals cross over. They usually show up when an animal is dying in the house. So, and the other animals know too, because they all communicate very well telepathically. So, and I think they can see. And it's,
So the loss is different, is what I'm gathering. The feeling of loss is different.
I think they're more accepting. And they do grieve in their own way, but they understand. And I don't think they hold on to the physical body as much as we do, of missing that person, like we miss our relatives or whatever. Because I also think that they see the spirits too, much more readily than we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with most of what, I would agree with everything that Kathy said. And I'm sure you've heard this before. I don't know if you actually did this with your dog, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I know how hard that is to make that difficult decision. A lot of people say that for an animal, the remaining animal, to fully be able to have that closure and that understanding, it's good to put the animal who has passed with them and give them some hours to be together. And I did this once, and it was very hard on me. And it was really, I think mostly it was just difficult to watch my remaining cat. I'm like gonna cry right now. Process what was happening with the other cat. But it was also really beautiful, because in watching her kind of, walk around the blanket that my dearly departed Miss Kitty was wrapped in, it was as if I could see her whole process unfold in a way that was so much more, I guess also because the word enlightened, than a human, because we are so incredibly attached to the idea of our loved one in the physical. And it was as if she was more concerned about, like, oh, is Miss Kitty sick? Oh no, she's transitioned. Oh, and it was just, the stages of grief were very palpable, I guess. And she grieved for a few days. She definitely did. But she was more concerned about me, I noticed. And that just really, I think, speaks to the beauty of the animals, is that they can accept something like this in a more elevated state than we can. And then they flip their grief around, and they'll be more concerned about the person or the other animal who is grieving harder than them. So I feel like the animals, they definitely understand death. They also understand, like, I've had so many readings where animals in spirit show up to tell the human that it's okay that they got another dog. Like, they're like, yeah, that's what we want. We're not feeling mad, we're not feeling replaced, because the human has that guilt, like, is my dog mad that I got another dog so quickly? The dogs, the cats, the what have you, they just want everyone to be happy, the new dog, the person. And so I feel like in their grieving, their biggest concern is just the joy of everyone else. They're very unbothered about their own ego. I hope that answers your question.
It does, because I was just thinking when I mentioned the name of my other dog, I sometimes don't even get a reaction anymore. And I'm like, do you even remember? So it goes, I understand both your answers, the grieving and the being able to move on. It Thank you so much. I just love how, everything that you do for the animals.
And even my dog, my last dog that I had died. I was grieving for a while because I was like, I don't want any more animals. I'm tired of them dying in my arms. I've just had enough of that. After 6 months, I heard from my dog. She told me she didn't want me grieving anymore. She goes, don't grieve for me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I found my soul purpose, not even just her life purpose, her soul purpose. And I saw her piled on with puppies like in the Disney movie. She was taking care of all these puppies that had died during or around birth that had no mothers. And so she was the happiest she could ever be. And she said she's not coming back in another body. She plans on staying there and continuing this work for eternity. And I thought that was so sweet.
That's beautiful. So sweet. I do see another question. I guess we could also open it up for everyone. Apologies. I know the first time we did a session, we saved the questions for the end. And this time I kind of broke it in the middle, but I think in the future we'll save it for the end because you're right, it's for everyone at this point. So in the chat, do you have certain steps to connect to animals? Like, do you meditate, raise your vibration? Can we ask our guides? I know we covered this a little bit, but your thoughts on these other processes as well, because someone else just chimed in that they want to know more about this as well, Tanya and Meg, I guess. Yeah. Can we ask our guides to help with learning how to communicate with animals?
Absolutely. You guides can help. If you do readings, if you read tarot or oracle or anything, it's a similar process. So for me, you have to know what your strongest clairs are. For me, it's claircognizance, clairsentience. So I know and feel I can step into someone's shoes in a psychic way and see life through them. And I noticed that when I did tarot, because they were handling the cards, when I took the card, the scene on the card would actually change. And actually, even the meaning of the card would even change. And I would say, this is what I really feel this card means, but this is what it says traditionally. And they would always say what I said intuitively was more accurate. So I do things more by psychometry. So I think holding a picture, it's kind of hard for me doing digital because you can't hold it. So it takes me a little longer and I get a little less information from it. But just don't have any expectations. See how it comes first. How they want to communicate with you is my advice. But I don't meditate or anything. I just, we go along our life and we pick up imprints and we pick up energy and thoughts and stuff just in our normal life. And that's how I do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said no expectations. That's really it, isn't it? So I don't meditate before reading. I have learned for me personally that actually screws me up. It puts me in a situation where I'm not at my best. And I've heard it both ways. So it's really just, you just got to practice and mess around and see what works best for you. For me, I just take 5 minutes, and if it's with an animal, I look at the photo, and I just trust and I surrender. Surrendering is total key. And at this point, I know that things could get super, super wacky. And that doesn't mean that I'm not in a good space to be doing it. It means that this animal is playing with all that they know I have to offer. And like Kathy said, if you're used to using cards, or if you're used to automatic writing, I do a lot of that. Whatever, best suits you, the animal will know that, and they'll work with you in that way. So just however you clear your mind or empty, I like to picture my brain and all the crap in a bucket and just emptying it. However you can do that best, that sets you up for the best ability to receive what the animal wants to share with you.
and trust. Just trust whatever you get is coming from the animal.
Beautiful. Chrissy, May, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, that's what I would have said.
Awesome.
It is similar. I've done a few animal communications. I do animal communications, and people do come to me about questions about what's going on in their animal's head. And it just comes to me. I don't do anything different to connect to the animal. Surrender. I like, Marisa, how you said that. You just have to let go of your ego. And that's the most difficult part that we have, I think, in any psychic or mediumship or any type of, psychic or that kind of spiritual communication. But animals, I think they're just better than humans at psychic. So knowing that, because they're complete sensory, right? They don't have a lot of logic like humans do. So they are our complete sensory empaths. And we can feel them if we just surrender to that. I think that.
I think they also already communicate telepathically to each other. So they're used to
Absolutely.
nothing new for them. Some animals don't like to talk. My ferals don't like to talk to me outside. They just like ignore me a lot. It's happy when I go out there and feed them, but it's like, other than that, it's like, okay, now you can go away. You can go back in the house.
One of the biggest things I have as far as recommendations with your animals is talk to them, but like they understand every word you're saying, because they do. I learned from another animal communicator friend of mine, because it's always harder to read your own animals, right? So I was having trouble. My dog has had quite a lot of trauma. It was a rescue and had a lot of trauma, and it didn't trust. And it becomes very bonded with one person, and they need reassurance. She has severe separation anxiety. And so I learned that when I go to the store and I'm leaving for a couple hours, I tell her. So my husband and I always tell, okay, BJ, we're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to gone for a couple hours, but we'll be back. And it really does make a difference, and it calms her. Yesterday, I was at the office all day. I forgot to tell her where I was going and what I was doing. And when I got home, she was like, even though my husband was home all day, but she was really beside herself as to, me being gone all day. So anyway, I'll let you guys go, but thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And I tell my dogs where I'm going to, and even if I just say be right back, and then my daughter's like, but you're not going to be right back. I'm like, to them, they know that I'm coming back.
Oh, they know you're coming back. I don't think it matters whether it's 2 minutes or 2 hours.
Exactly.
2 days.
Exactly. So great. So I guess let's move on to like Kathy's thoughts and your what you more experience. I know some of that came up in these questions, but I was looking forward to hearing from you and how you approach animal communication as well, and your stories. And so yeah.
I always thought it was always my thoughts.
Mm.
It's only been in the last 2 years that I've really more seriously communicated with them. So I still sometimes think it's in my own thoughts. I was renting a room, and the guy had a dog who had cancerous tumors. And for some reason, I just said, well, let's try turmeric. And they actually shrunk her tumors. My dog also got a cancerous tumor on her chest, and that shrunk it. But I think with the other dog, cancer went to her head, because she started having seizures and then she died. And my dog was losing the ability to walk and had infections all over her body. Her body had just started shutting down. And so we had to go put her to sleep because she was just suffering. And that's the one that takes care of the little unborn puppies. But and I really never thought about talking to them so much, other than I do talk to them on a normal, regular basis. That's who I talk to, and I prefer talking to animals than humans most of the time. So because of my stronger clairs being claircognizance and clairsentience, I kind of know what they want or need versus communicating with them so much. So in that way, it's a little different. It doesn't feel like I'm communicating with them because it's like, I just know.
That's really cool. Yeah, because I imagine a bunch of people here maybe already know their strengths and which clair is theirs. And so to leverage that to communicate with animals. And what I gather from everyone, it's living animals, animals who've crossed over, it's still almost the same method. Is that true?
I think so.
Yeah.
And for some people, they get it, they receive things in their dreams more than in
Mm.
life. And I think that's maybe because we have certain expectations on how we're going to hear from them or communicate with them. Just like people, we have certain expectations, and when it doesn't live up to it, oh, it didn't work. You know, when we're getting ideas or something, when we're doing dishes or gardening or whatever, and all these ideas are popping into our head, then it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
And that's where how we should have done it in the first place, but we let our heads get in the way and get out. We have to just get out of our own way sometimes and just let things happen however they're going to happen. But I haven't really done a whole lot of communication. I think I need more practice, but maybe it's because I do things by psychometry more than anything else. So remotely, it's kind of a little more difficult. I might get a few images or thoughts or something, but that's about it. Where when I'm there physically with the animal, I get a lot more.
Mhm. Wow. Very cool.
Interesting.
So what other questions do we have from the group? I also have, you can't tell with my virtual background, I have a potential volunteer. If we would want to see a demo, if anyone would want to do that.
No, but I'm so sorry. I already forgot his name.
Theodore.
Theodore. Theodore.
Well, this is my ever assistant in everything I do work-wise. He's always here with me.
Just ridiculously cute. It's criminal. Criminal.
Oh, Megan has a question too.
Oh,
It's not really a question. It's just I just coincidences aren't really coincidences, but for the past 2 nights I've had dreams with my dog that died 4 years ago. Her and I were like soulmates. And it's just crazy because earlier Kathy had reminded me about this Zoom, and I had it in my calendar and it warned me at 1 o'clock, but I totally forgot about it. And then all of a sudden, like at 2 or 3, this Zoom popped in my head. I was like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be in a Zoom, to learn about animal communication because I talk to animals all the time, but I don't always hear things back. But then what I thought was even crazier is I get on the Zoom and Marissa Love, you say it says at the ladybug something. And my mom, who's in the spirit realm, she used to call me Ladybug. So, and I've been talking a lot more to my guides and stuff because um just to progress and get to know them better and just, signs and stuff. And I was like, holy cannoli. It's like for me, another like coincidence or sign that this is where I'm supposed to be at this moment, is learning more about pet or animal communication, because I'm a big animal lover. And every time Marissa would get emotional about a story she was telling, I would be getting emotional. I was like, oh my God. So I just think it's really great that you guys do this, and I have the opportunity to be a part of it. That's all.
That's so cool. I love all this
Yeah.
little snags and synchronicities and stuff.
Thank you for sharing that, Megan. That's fun.
I have another kind of question I can bring up to the panelists here. Something that I noticed, again, because I know Marisa, is I always communicated with domesticated animals. I never even thought to try to communicate to animals that just, are out in the wild. And until I was having a conversation with Marisa, I was telling her about how cool it was to have this eagle. It was sitting in a tree looking at my backyard. I'm pretty sure he was going to try to snag up my dog. Because I think the dog was about snack size for the eagle. But anyway, I was telling Marisa about it one day when we were visiting, and she goes, well, it probably had a message for you. What did it say? I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even connect. So, I don't even know why I didn't even think about it, but I remember from from a child, I would, how you kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen it just jokingly done. You kind of just say what the animal is saying based on how it looked. That's really what was happening. That what I didn't know as a child was I was getting telepathically what was going on in the animal's head. So it's interesting. So I think also, Marisa, can you talk a little bit about kind of the messages that even the animals that are not domesticated, the ones we just come across, how that occurs and what their purpose is? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
So that brings to mind, I think it was last autumn, maybe, no matter. I was looking through the kitchen window, procrastinating doing the dishes, and I saw what looked like a wild peacock, like lumbering through our yard. And like, that's not a normal thing. I had never seen a wild pheasant before, so I didn't know. But I thought, oh my gosh, someone's pet peacock is on the loose. I have to go save it, clearly, and not do the dishes. Yay. And by the time I got all my layers on, I went out. I thought I had lost it. And in our yard, it's very jungle-like, it's very wild. And so I'm going through like marshes, and there's a little bit of snow, and it's just the situation. I'm in the jungle, and I come across the wild pheasant, but it's kind of out of reach, and it's on the move, and it seems like it's waiting for me here and there, but the further it goes, the more inaccessible it is for me, and I'm hyper aware of ticks. And so the more afraid I got of the ticks, the more annoyed I got that this bird was like going off into the wilderness. And I was like, well, there has to be a really good reason because I was looking out the window in that exact moment where it walked right past my vision. If it had been within seconds, I wouldn't have seen it. So this is not an accident. And I made the conscious decision to not go traipsing deeper into the jungle. And in that moment, I sent out, I was like, well, why haven't I just communicated with this bird through heart language? Instead, I'm being like a lumberjack human meathead and just being like, I'll catch you, so stupid. And so I said, hey, can you go over to the dirt road down yonder and wait for me on the left side next to the stream so we could have an open communicative moment face to face? And I'm totally doubting this, like this is not going to happen. And so I walked, and this took me like 10 minutes to get over to the dirt road. And I'm walking up, and I'm looking on the left. I'm like, come on. And just as I was convinced that I was just a complete Looney Tune and the bird was lost forever. It was just there, right where I had requested it be. And I, thank God I had already gone to the bathroom or else, whoa, I was just like, oh my God, this is really a thing. And it waited and I was able to come up and we were face to face long enough for me to receive the message. And I do a lot of like psychic poetry, channel poetry. And so I took that message. I wish I could remember it right now because it was beautiful, but it's in my poem. And I came back and I sat on the porch. And from there, in a distance session with the bird, I received, the entirety of the message. And what the bird was telling me was that we are not so dissimilar. I'll repost it on my page or something if anyone wants to hear the poem, because it's a really
I would love to
sweet
hear
one.
it. Yeah, love
I think
to.
it's called the Peacock Hour. But that's just an example of, these animals show up and it's up to you to take the initiative. They're not gonna like scream at you, like, hey, guess what? You have to take the time to really hear. And there's always more than meets the eye, I find, with what they're sharing. And the more you're willing to listen, the more they get excited because they just want to share and they just want to help. So
I
that's
love
a
it.
fun, wild animal communication.
I'll share something because I don't regard myself like anything like a animal communicator or medium or this, but I think we all are, connected. And so I was visiting my mom on Long Island and we found this big set of keys. Like, you ever see a keychain and it's so heavy with a million keys? And we were walking at night around her neighborhood and I hung it on a telephone post on a nail, like where there was a reflector, saying like, I hope the person who lost these keys will like notice it up here. And then the next day I was going for a walk and I was coming on to where I hung the keys up and they were still there. And when we were kids, my mom had us just walk up and down the block. We weren't allowed to walk this. So I was about to just do the walk I was trained to do. But I thought I really want to see the person who lost those keys get them back before I go home to California. So I crossed the street to like not take the road yonder. And these birds all of a sudden started going like a clamor. I was like, I think that's for me. So I follow the birds. I'm going down this hill, and like off in the distance is a man and his dog. And I hear or get the sense, or I just know I have to go to that man. And so as least creepily as I could do it, because he's walking and I'm trying to catch up. And so I make my way over and I catch up and I start petting his dog, like, oh, hi, your dog's so cute, la, la, la. And then I say, well, did you happen to lose some keys? And the guy, not realizing this woman's asking me if I lost keys, she must have found them. He was so stressed out. He starts going, I lost my keys. I looked all over. I tore my house apart. I'm going to have to spend hundreds of dollars. And he's going on and on. I'm like, no. I asked you because I know where they are. And it was just amazing because I love, like Christy asked a question about communicating with nature. And I think just being open, like when you're outside and it's something snagged your attention, or I put the thought out there and it was from my heart, like it was like, like it was a good intention, right? And then you get the response. And so I wanted to share that one because it was like one of those things, like you're saying, it's just like you can't believe it that this flock of birds is yelling to me to chase this guy.
Or maybe you wouldn't have noticed him without the birds making all that chatter.
I never would have gone down that hill if the birds didn't yell at me to go that way. Yeah. Yeah. Like I heard the birds. I was like, I think I need to go. That's for me. Yeah.
That's so cool, Jessica.
We have a question
Yeah,
from
what a great story.
Megan, and also there was a question in the chat. So if it's okay, I'll read the one that came in the chat first from Tanya, which is it easier to communicate with animals in spirit versus here on Earth? Before my fur baby passed, I tried to communicate with him telepathically and questioned what I got. And since he's passed, I've had so many signs and dreams, and he meows a lot. And I know when these signs are him versus others I have in spirit, but I struggle to get direct messages from him, if that makes sense. I question things I get in my mind that are words as opposed to images, but I'm struggling a lot with being quiet enough to hear still due to grief.
So I think it can be either. I think it depends if you're a medium, you trust spirit more, and you trust what you get from spirit versus someone in life, even an animal who doesn't communicate verbally like a person does. So I think it depends on what you do, what you trust more. And I think we doubt ourselves a lot, especially with animals, because we may not hear it. It may just be a feeling. It may be, nothing nonverbal. We may not hear it. We may not see it. We don't know. And so I think we question it more than we do than when they're in spirit. So it depends.
There's a lot in that question. I'm like, my brain's melting a little bit, but with excitement, just because it's such a good question. I feel like, it's one of those things that depends on the human and it depends on the animal as well. Just to harken back to what I mentioned earlier, how everyone's different. I do think that once we are removed from the earth space, the distractions that are in place there on both sides, well, humans, we get way more distracted than animals, right? Animals are so much more in tune with all of their senses. But animals also pick up, they're like sponges. They're super empaths. So when we're distracted and we're busy minded, part of that can transfer onto them. And that's where the communication between the both parties can get kind of muddled. I picture like squiggly lines on a screen, where it's not so quick and clean, just because of the situation that is Earth. So once that's taken out of the equation and it's more just spirit to spirit, often it can be a lot more, I guess the word I would use is fluent, because we're more open to it, I guess. We're more open to communicating with the world of spirit, because when we're here in person, for some reason it feels more forced, I guess, when we're here on the earth place. And in the other space, it just feels more, I don't know what the word, maybe more natural, I guess, which I think a lot of people would say that's weird. Like, it's called supernatural, but really if you break up that word, it is super natural. So I always try to reference that because I think it's interesting that it's been spun in this weird paranormal way. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think just trusting what you're getting, the more you trust, the more you'll get, and the more you'll be able to decipher what's your mind, what's your hope, and what is real. And then also just to remember that it doesn't always super matter, when you're grieving, because the animal picks up on everything about you, no matter whether they're in spirit or whether they're with you on the bed. Because as you think about things, as you visualize things, and as you feel things with your heart, so does that animal. I hope that helps.
Well, that helped me, and I didn't even ask the question. So,
Yay.
so Megan, would you like to unmute and ask?
Well, my first question is, I have like a couple of stories, but my first question is, like, I have this senior dog that I adopted, and sometimes he just like, there's times when he looks at me in love, and I can see he's just in awe of me, and I'm just like, I love you too, Boogie. And then, but there's times he just looks at me just like he's looking into my soul, and I'm like, okay, what does he want? What is he trying to tell me? How do I get to the point where I can hear what he wants, or what he's trying to tell me? Because he just stare at me, and I'm just like, do I look disgusting today? I talk to him about it. What's the issue? And he'd like, sometimes he'll sneeze or he'll just look away like, oh, you human. But how do I get to that point where I can hear what he's saying? Because wild animals, I can hear easier, but with my own listen, your dog, I know he's trying to tell me something, but I don't know how to get where I can hear him.
Maybe it's not to hear. Maybe it's to feel.
Yeah, but he's staring at me. Like, it's just like an intense stare. Like, he's not looking at me human. He is reading my soul. And I know sometimes he's looking at me where he's like, are you okay emotionally? That kind of feeling. But there's times he just turns and he just looks at me. And I'm just like,
Maybe he's just sending you love and healing.
Yeah, but the eyes are not showing the love and healing part. Like, I see when he does that too. But it's like, like he wants to tell me something. Like, are you listening to me? And I'm like, I'm trying to listen. You know what I mean? It's like I can differentiate certain things, but there's times he just
Are you expecting
maybe
to hear it though? Maybe it's your
yeah,
expectation.
because he's looking at me like, hey human, listen to me. Like
Yes, but he may
like
be
it's
wanting to communicate in a different way, pictures or feeling. Maybe he's
yeah.
trying to convey a feeling to you, like pain or something, discomfort,
Yeah.
and
I don't
nothing.
know. That's why I'm trying to figure out how do because me, I don't get anything in my brain. My brain's like blank. I'm just like, okay, why are you staring at me, little man?
Hmm.
I know, Marisa, you mentioned the body scan before. Would that be something maybe she could try?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's great for ourselves as well. And regardless of if the animal is, knowingly sick or you're worried about them, that's always just a cool thing to do because again, the more you practice it, the better you get. For some reason, as you're talking about what's happening with your dog, and you're just really fixated on the eyes, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
key to your specific situation. And I just felt like suggesting that rather than and it sounds like you're not really trying, you're being good about not pushing or not, having too much expectation. But just pretend that you have no ears, you don't know any words, and just ask your dog to convey what he's wishing to convey through images alone. And then
Okay.
just jot that down. Like let him take you on a weird visual cruise and try not to make any sense of it. Just write it down and then put it aside and see how your dog acts after you have done that together. See, just kind of
Okay.
take, yeah, and then go back to your notes like after a break and just see
Mm-hmm.
what really jumps out at you, what's like pulling you towards it. And, I feel like that might be a good way for you to get a clearer message for some reason.
Okay. I'll try that because there's a lot of times I can read him pretty well, but sometimes he just looks at me like he's like wanting to communicate with me about something, and I'm the one sitting here like, I don't know. It's like blank for me, but he's just looking at me. So, but the other thing is, we were talking about like wild animals, and I used to live on the Sacramento River in California, and I used to go fishing in the river. And I always get frustrated because these hawks would come down and just go down and catch a fish real quick. And I'm like, you little bugger, you took my fish. Well, there was this bald eagle, and he was observing me, and I was talking to him. I'm like, how are they catching these fish so easily, and I'm not? And he's like, you just got to be patient. Well, screw this patience thing, you know. And so I went back inside, and in my house, it had like all windows. It was a huge, like just you could see the whole river and everything. So then I watched the bald eagle. He's just like still sitting in the tree. All of a sudden, he flies and he goes really high up and he's scanning and he goes really fast down into the river and catches a fish. And then he has the audacity to fly right in front of me and show me this fish. And he was like, "See, patience is the key." And the fish was like, "Save me!" Like you could see every little detail, and it was just sometimes animals are brought there, number one to teach us patience, but also to make us laugh. I had this incident where I was at the grocery store, and on top of the grocery store there was a crow, and it was like talking to me, and I stood there and I was talking to it back. We were communicating, and just out loud, like I didn't give a rat's patootie what people thought. And the crows all, they're watching you and they think you're crazy. And I was like, I turned and looked, I found the people, I'm like, you guys probably think I'm crazy, huh? And they're like, well, we find it interesting, you know? And the crow started laughing. She thought it was funny. And it was just neat to be able to communicate with that crow and the people observing, you know. And yeah, I might have looked a little crazy, but I didn't care. And that just brought more joy to my life because, you know, sometimes you get these like little bumps and then you're really sad. And just the animal, you know, just the crow on top of the roof, you know, laughing at these humans, thinking it was funny. They thought we were crazy. You know, it made me laugh. And, you know, it was just, I love, that's what I love about animals so much is they're there for you at just the right moment sometimes. And they, they cheer your whole, you're like, this is why I'm alive, you know? So I just wanted to share that.
I think animals are just pure of heart anyway and non-judgmental. They don't judge us like we judge each other all the time. And they don't have all that inner chatter that we have. They're just in the present, period.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing those stories. Those are so delightful. I want to ask you something. Megan, yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what you took out of that experience with the eagle? Like if you were to look at that like a nature's oracle moment, a message for you, what would you have taken out of that or what did you?
Patience is key. I needed to practice more patience just in life, in my own life. Because I used to be a big planner. Everything was organized. I knew everything down to a T. And it was more like relax, chill out, be patient, and go with the flow of things, and things will be provided. That's how I felt. Like it was, but it was just like comedy at the same time because he was just like, "See, I got the fish because I waited patiently. I'm gonna eat because I waited patiently, and you know it was provided." So it's just it's. I've had times too where like I've been down and dealing because I've had a pretty rough life, and I'll like cry out to my guides, like send a deer, just one simple deer, and um and they'll like the next day I'll just happen to look out the window and there's a deer standing there, you know. And it's just like because nature, I'm a big nature person, and those little affirmations are just reminders that we're not alone, and keep trusting and believing. So yeah, in that moment it was very much of a life lesson, but also kind of a haha, he got the fish and I didn't. Yeah, patience, your patience, you know.
Yeah, awesome. I feel like that's a really cool example of how animals show up and they'll mean different things for different people. Because, you know, everyone loves looking up online, like, you know, buffalo symbolism. It's fun, right? Rabbit symbolism, abundance, yada, yada, intuition, underworld. But, you know, it's so circumstantial. So if I had had that happen to me with the eagle and the fish, first of all, I would have been freaking out like this poor fish, you know, like leaping through the air, like I will save you, you know. But I would have taken out of that, have no shame in taking what you need.
Right.
And so you took it a completely different way. And it's so fun, all the different ways the messages can come through for us as unique individuals having unique moments of experience in our life.
Yeah, and it's not just animals. Like for me, I I was hiking with my kids, and we were at the waterfalls, and there was this big boulder, like rock, like huge, and all of a sudden I heard "hug me." So I went over to it and I hugged it, and my girls came over and hugged the rock too, and we all gave it a kiss because I felt it needed that. And my girls were at first like, "Mom, you're crazy," but then they joined in, and that was so. It was not. It was just so important to show my kids again that nature needs love too. People often, you know, admire it, but don't take the time to give it a hug or just talk to it. You know, I bet you've been here a long time. You probably have a lot of stories. And it was later on, I had a medium read for me, and she's all, for some reason, I'm getting this big boulder in your medium reach. And I was like, she's all, did you hug a rock? And I was like, I sure did. And I showed my kids that it's important to take a moment and just really embrace nature because it's here to help heal us. And it might seem silly to some people, but who cares? And it was just neat. Just those little incidents. It to me is very powerful and moving.
Yeah, what a lucky rock.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's that big connection to nature, and we could offer the love and the energy, and we could ask for the love and the energy and ask. I love that you asked for the guidance too and said, show me this. I always say, where are my birds at? And they come. So it's cool. It's two-way. It's two-way communication. We do have 10 minutes left. I did see one person ask and someone hearted it about Marisa connecting to see if Theodore had anything to share. It's okay if he didn't, because I would definitely love to just set something separate up with you and hire you to connect with all my animals, past and present. But yeah, if you're feeling that, we could do that still, or wrap up with any other final words of wisdom.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Marisa. So
Yeah.
if you want to try to do a reading, great. I'm sure everybody would love it. But yeah, also just so you guys know, does everybody know how to get a hold of you guys if they need or would like an animal communication reading?
We didn't cover
I
that.
don't. Yeah.
Okay.
We can add it to the event discussion or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
drop
Yeah,
it
when
on
we
in
post
there.
the video, I'll put it, but also, yeah, at the end to be like, you can find us here. Yeah. But this is Mr. Theodore.
Okay, since we don't have a lot of time, but he does seem open to sharing. See, I wasn't going to mention this earlier when you brought him up because I was like, that's super weird. But I had already talked about sharing what you're getting. So I'm gonna walk the walk I talk, and I'm gonna do this. I don't know what this means, but he immediately wanted to talk about his twinkle toes. I feel like he's just he's into his little toes. Something about them is really pleasing for him. He seems to think that you enjoy his toe. Maybe he's got a foot fetish. Like, I have no idea. But something about his toes, like being pampered, kind of felt like the thing. Extra love for his feet.
He licks his feet all the time, and I tell him to stop because I think it's not good. So maybe he's trying to tell me that
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing that he's doing.
I feel like what he's saying is extra love for the feet. So maybe look into what's going on there. I don't feel like it's anything, super concerning. It just, I don't know, it's interesting. I've never had a dog say they want to be pampered, but that's what it feels like.
We've done the dual, my daughter and son-in-law, they grabbed his little paws and they called it like a dual paw massage. So maybe he wants more of that for sure, because it was like this big deal of like, we took pictures of his double paw massage.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
So he definitely enjoyed that. Hilarious. Twinkle toes. So now you know what to call it.
Twinkle toes. Well, he's also did this move that I don't make him do now because he's older and has some issues, where his trainer taught him to do dance, and he'll throw it out once in a blue. Like, my daughter FaceTimed him from New York and he went up and did the dance move. Like, he never does it for me. So maybe he could be proud of that, but I don't try to elicit that because he's older, and I don't want him putting all that weight on his to do that move. If you ever saw a dog just like up and dancing, and so maybe he likes
Yes.
that, and that's another thing I don't really encourage, just because his little knees, his little hip dysplasia, like all that
Maybe
stuff.
that's why he wants a little extra foot love. Maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
probably.
A little extra foot pampering. Yeah. Is there any like specific quick question you want to ask him?
I just want to see what he want to tell you. Yeah.
He showed me drinking and getting stuff stuck on his nose.
Yes. Yep.
A lot, and he
Yep.
just thought that he would remark on that and how
Yep.
he's like, he thinks it's funny.
Oh,
I
good.
guess.
Yeah, because he's drinking, but then it's like he's snorting the water, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Like,
I'm like, this is not very graceful. Why are you showing this to me? Okay.
Yep, and I've never seen that in any of our dogs or cats before. That's definitely him. Yep.
Yeah.
These little
Yeah. So he's,
snappy
he's
noises.
definitely really open
Like
to,
he's
to
doing it to be
communicating.
funny.
You know, however you can spread joy, I
Yeah,
think.
he's definitely not a graceful one.
That's too
But
funny.
sweet, lovey boy. Thank you. Yes, you definitely picked up on the reality of Theodore. Um, that's amazing.
So cute.
It's wonderful. I know we've only got 5 more minutes. I wanted to bring up one more thing that's maybe not on the most happiest of notes, but I do have noticed in when people have come to me for animal communication, and I wanted to know from Kathy and Marisa, is a lot of people come, and Pat has already said in the comments, the part about are they ready to
Mm.
move on or cross over. And I know in the beginning, or when I was here, in the beginning of when I was here, you did mention that it's harder for us to let go than it is for them. And if you guys want to comment on that, I do get people saying, is it time? Are they ready? And most likely the answer is yes. And I got the question of why haven't they just crossed over? A lot of times they don't want to leave their human because they know their human is scared, is fearful of losing them. How do you guys handle that? And do you get a lot of that?
Kathy, you want to do this?
I have a lot. Well, I mean, with my own animals. And I think it's because as humans, we tend to hold on to those that are close to us physically, where animals are ready to go, but they're more worried about us. So even after they pass, they still stick around because they're concerned about our happiness.
Right. And I think the biggest thing is we feel guilt when we have them crossed over. You know what I mean? And one of the things I really try to do is let the human know to not feel guilt. This is the most loving thing you can do for that animal.
And I think it's also about euthanizing them. Should we, shouldn't we? This is the first time I actually communicated with an animal about it, and the cat said she would rather die at home or in familiar places, but she was open to being euthanized if it bothered us. If it was too painful for us to watch, then she was okay with someone coming to the house. So I thought it was really interesting that she felt the dying process was okay with her, no matter how painful.
No. And I guess Marisa lost connection. Looks like she left. So anyway, this has been a great panel discussion. Jessica, I just want to say thank you so much for being that person that schedules these panel discussions and gets things together. I so appreciate you for all that you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And yeah, just
And we always want to do it better and better. I always want to do it better and better. And so, and thanks to Kathy for always giving me ideas for next time, try this, next time, try that. Because that's what it's about, right? Feed forward, doing better next time. And we might get it on a rhythm of like, seems like this general time is good. And so just keep the eye out because we want to hear the ideas from everyone. And then
yeah, let us know what you want, what
yeah,
kind of
to
panel
serve, to
discussions
give
you
you the
want.
answers you're looking for. And I'll be sure to put, if I get the links from Kathy and Marisa, when we share the video out, we'll share that information as well. So yeah, we even made it longer because last time here we have 1 minute, 1 minute to go.
I wanted to say before you go too, Jessica, I really appreciate it, and Kathy for inviting me because I've gone into groups or Zooms before, and I have ADHD, so I get bored very easily. And this one kept me the whole time. So I applaud you. Thank you very much.
Aw, I'm so glad. I love your stories, and I hope to see you in the group. I don't get on Facebook all that much, but I'm in that group all the time. Well, when I'm on Facebook. So awesome. All right. Well, thank you, panelists. I don't know where Marisa went, but I'm sure she feels our appreciation. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Christy, for sharing your wisdom as well. And we'll see you all at the next.
back.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! It was all my fault, Christy. She was in the waiting room.
Oh,
Well, she just popped up in the waiting room.
there she
Okay,
is.
good.
Don't feel guilty.
Welcome back,
Just
Marisa.
What up, guys?
Well, if anyone wants to drop
Oh, you're on your phone.
their links in the chat before we hang up, but otherwise I'll put the information. We just really wanted to send a giant thank you to you, and so glad you came back on for a second.
Well, thank all of you. Sorry. Technological problems are just 24/7, you know, you feel me.
Well, if it's gonna fail right at the very end is the place to do it. So
Well, I know you were trying to wrap up, but Robin, that reminds me, she said she had her fur kid go, and they showed up the next morning in their normal routine. And I still I have a fur baby in the spirit realm, but she's still very much around me. And I can feel the pitter patter of her feet when she curls up next to me, because I'll lay on my side. I like to take naps. I'll just be honest. On the
I do
couch.
too.
I lay on my side, and you know how your legs kind of, go on the side like that. And she would curl up. And I have a dog, but I was like, I felt the pitter patter and the snuggle in. And I'm like, that was not the dog I have alive right now. And I opened my eyes. Nope, my dog's over there. But I felt her. Yeah. So they're definitely still around us. For
As
sure.
I'm walking, I'm almost tripping over animals that I think are there. And it's like, oh, no, it's not.
I see her all the time. It's really wonderful. So thanks for that reminder, Robin. Thank you, everyone.
yes,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. And we'll get this posted for you on the Facebook and on YouTube, and see you in the next one, I hope.
Yes.
Thank
Do you know what the
you.
topic will be next time?
Oh, I want to see if I could get an astral projection person, because that came up, but I could also do the Facebook group post and see who who our local experts are in the group. So it's
Do a poll and see who wants to hear
exactly,
about
yeah,
what.
exactly. Because I have the ideas, but then we need the panelists. So so it'll be a surprise. Short answer.
Serious. Like it.
And always open.
We'll find the person.
I think Marisa and I astral project too.
Oh, cool. Well, there we go. That would be amazing. Then we're done. Let's do that one.
More the merrier.
All right. It sounds
And remote view.
yes. And I'd love to know the distinction. But we'll get to that, right? Yeah. So maybe
Sure. Yeah, great
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
Thank you.
Marisa and Kathy, thank you so much for taking time to be our panelists for this. I really appreciate you guys.
I
Truly.
appreciate
And we
this.
appreciate
you.
you, Christy.
Thank you for putting this on.
You're welcome. And Christy, you made it all happen. Number one.
Well, I
These are
can't
fun.
do
I
this.
enjoy it.
It takes a team,
does.
Jessica.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have taken this on as your pet project. And I truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making something that I would like to see actually happen, because I just don't have the time. And thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I just got chills. So
I did too.
I'm honored. So yeah, it's
I think these
Love
are so
it.
much better than going to a webinar where you're just hearing one person talk and that's it.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like it.
awesome. All right.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Bye.
Pat, it's
Thank
good to
you.
see you, sweetheart.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.